Fuck around, make my 40 pop.
Alright guys, somebody asked me what do I think is the top 5 dojutsus that was actually introduced into Boruto. I will try to put it in order. All the information about these dojutsus are not fully out yet. With Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, those dojutsus are like fully established. So it's going to be a bit of a projection in this list. At number 5, we're going to go with Eida's clairvoyant ability. Specifically, this right here is going to be dubbed the Sengringan. Now, if you guys don't necessarily know specifically what this is, this comes from Amato, essentially a scientist. He makes a bunch of cyborgs. Most of you guys probably know this, but he makes a bunch of cyborgs. He makes these scientific dojutsus as well. One of the scientific dojutsus that he did actually make was Eida's actual Sengringan. Now, some people kind of hypothesize that she got this ability from an Otsutsuki member, and that ability from an Otsutsuki member was actually made into a dojutsu. As of right now, all we know is that she has the clairvoyant ability, essentially meaning that she can see everything that happens on Earth at any given time. It was kind of explained as like Eida having a surveillance camera in every single room at every given time on every place on the planet, and she could just tune in whenever she wants. Not only that, she could also look into the past as well. As long as Eida was alive at that time, she can see exactly what happened. The reason why this ability is in 5th is because it doesn't necessarily have that much attacking viability. This right here specifically is a dojutsu that is actually subject to change in literally about 13 days. A chapter comes out in 13 days where Eida's actually going to be, or most likely going to be, in battle, and we're probably going to get to see a little bit more of the abilities of her actual Sengringan. Now at number 4, we have Delta's dojutsu. Specifically, I doubt we have an actual name for this. It has a couple of abilities though. The first thing being is of course chakra absorption. In Boruto, I think that right there is definitely a necessity for a lot of the villains and a lot of the strong characters that are actually in the series. Not only that, the chakra absorption is also a little bit different. It doesn't necessarily just flat out absorb chakra like the Rinnegan or like the Karma Seal and etc. It actually absorbs the chakra and does like a reflection thing. For example, when Delta fought against Naruto, Delta actually absorbed the Rasengan. And not only that, she was also able to reproduce that Rasengan and actually try to attack Naruto with that same Rasengan. This right here is a good thing and a bad thing, because if she absorbs something extremely overpowered, it would be a very good asset to Delta. But also the downside is that there is a reservoir. It's not necessarily like a regular chakra absorption where, hey, you could just absorb chakra all willy-nilly. She actually has like a pool of chakra that's presumably stored inside of her eye. Naruto took advantage of this when he literally overloaded her dojutsu and completely destroyed it. Naruto essentially funneled a lot of his chakra into that eye and pretty much had an overload. So again, it's a good and a bad thing. Not only that, Delta also has the 360 vision. It's a little bit more than 360 vision, mainly because her eyes are kind of linked to another robot thing, and this robot thing again can see almost the whole entire battlefield because it does take flight. And not only that, it can see more than 360 mainly because it's a completely different point of view. It's very similar to Pain in His Paths, where all the Rinnegan's visions were actually linked. So because of this eye, sneak attacks are most likely not going to work against Delta. The biggest part about this eye that I really do like, and why it's in this actual spot, is because of the actual laser beams or photon beams that she could actually blast out of her eyes at any given moment. Extremely fast, extremely powerful, but the biggest thing is that it prevents regeneration. In anime like this of Boruto, regeneration is going to be extremely important. Boruto regenerates, Kawaki regenerates, Naruto regenerates. I'm not completely sure about Sasuke, I think he does, but most strong characters have the ability to regenerate. This blast right here deads everything. It deads all that. There is no regeneration if Delta actually does hit you with this, and this right here essentially makes Delta extremely dangerous in any given battle that she actually enters. Now the next one is going to be number 3. Now number 3 spot, I'm going to have the Mangekyo Sharingan. This right here was very close with Delta's, and I'm going to tell you why. Delta's ability, it can actually compete with almost everybody because of that photon beam. The Mangekyo Sharingan though, it's a Naruto Shippuden dojutsu. I don't necessarily want to down Naruto Shippuden dojutsus, but when it comes to the elite of the elites, Isshiki Otsutsuki, Momoshiki Otsutsuki, Mangekyo Sharingans usually don't do that much against them. Of course, Sasuke is a different breed, man, because he's just so elite. But with this Mangekyo Sharingan, I'm talking about the Shin Uchiha Mangekyo Sharingan. This one is going to be a synthetic dojutsu that was actually created by Orochimaru when he was essentially fawning over the Sharingan. He kind of gave up on that dream, and his actual experiment, Shin Uchiha, went completely rogue. This was like an earlier arc in Boruto, but just like Delta's eye, this thing also has the 360 plus vision, where the Mangekyo Sharingan's vision is actually linked to a small little thing that actually accompanies Shin Uchiha. It's not necessarily going to be as effective as Delta's dojutsu mainly because this thing can't necessarily take flight and have a large view of the whole battlefield, but even still, it's still over 360 vision. Not only that, telekinesis. This right here is the reason why Shin Uchiha was actually actually able to contend with characters like Hokage Naruto and adult Sasuke, even though at that particular point they're a little bit weakened, but regardless, that's still a feat in itself. Whenever Shin Uchiha would mark weapon, he immediately has all control over that weapon. Not only that, Shin Uchiha can also manipulate multiple weapons at a time. Now, the strongest ability of this Mangekyo Sharingan, and why I had to put this over Delta's Dojutsu, is because the Mangekyo Sharingan, or Shin Uchiha's Mangekyo Sharingan, this one has a version of Kamui. Now, as I said, it is a synthetic Mangekyo Sharingan, so obviously the regular Kamui is going to be a lot better, but because it still has the same principles, time space ninjutsu could probably rip off an arm, even though it didn't necessarily rip off Sarada's arm. But this right here is still going to be extremely valuable, especially to a character like Sasuke, since he now doesn't have the Rinnegan. If he wants to implant one of these Mangekyo Sharingans in his eyes, he now has the ability to actually teleport from dimension to dimension, just like what he was doing with the Rinnegan. And presumably this might even actually take less chakra than the Rinnegan was taking when he was actually using the Rinnegan. The next eye is going to be the Jogen. Now this right here is solely a projection. As of right now, the Jogen has not necessarily given us much information about specifically what it can do. A couple of things that is pretty much confirmed is that Boruto can actually see chakra points, chakra flow, and of course could potentially even see the weakness in his opponent's chakra flow. But the reason why it's up here, the reason why a lot of people think it's going to be absolutely OP, is because Tonetti actually dubbed the eye the quote-unquote star of hope, essentially meaning that Boruto is actually going to use this eye to actually solve the problems that arise in the future. Now Tonetti is essentially looking into Boruto's future, and he's essentially saying that even though Boruto has the karma seal, Boruto is like the strongest guy ever, the Jogen out of all of that is actually going to be the quote-unquote star of hope. So hopefully it does actually live up to the billing. Not only that, some things that we kind of think the Jogen can possibly do, it could potentially raise Boruto's actual speed and strength. One of the things that he did do is actually react to Momoshiki's attack, even though Momoshiki was easily blitzing Kage level characters, but Boruto out of all of them was the one to actually react to one of his attacks. But at number one, Mel's gonna hate me for this, but at number one, we have Isshiki Otsutsuki's Dojutsu. This right here, as of right now, still has absolutely no name. Some people did prescribe a name to it, but as of right now, it hasn't necessarily been made official by the Boruto writer, so I'm not completely sure specifically what it can do with Sukuna Hikona and Daikokuten. What this thing can do is essentially shrink things to a very, very small level. On the surface, just saying that, it does not sound good, but if you look at how Isshiki Otsutsuki used this ability, it was absolutely amazing. Not only that, whatever it shrinks, it can actually store into a dimension where time does not flow. And not only that, it could also reappear that object whenever Isshiki Otsutsuki wants it to. On the surface, this does not sound crazy, but when he fought against Naruto and Sasuke, he did this with these huge black cubes. These huge black cubes were not regular huge moving object. For example, Madara uses Rinnegan to actually appear meteors. The meteors were moving at gravity. The meteors are moving about 10 meters per second. This thing, however, moves at multiple times of light speed. Just to kind of illustrate this, Isshiki Otsutsuki was caught in a very tough spot. Naruto for the first time got a hold of Isshiki Otsutsuki. Naruto himself couldn't necessarily do much with Isshiki Otsutsuki, so he essentially took Isshiki Otsutsuki and went full speed towards Sasuke. Now I do want to remind you, Naruto is a character who is over light speed. Sasuke is also a character who is over light speed. Naruto going full speed towards Sasuke already puts the speed over light speed. Sasuke moving over light speed already makes the speed combined multiple times of light speed. At the last second, the last second, Isshiki Otsutsuki opened his eyes before they can even complete the attack. Sasuke had to literally use his teleportation to get out of the way of the cubes in time. Naruto could not get out of the way in time, but luckily that was a shadow clone. But these right here are the 5 top dojutsus that were actually introduced into Boruto. Again, my personal opinion, I think that the Jogen has a very good chance of potentially topping Isshiki Otsutsuki's dojutsu as of right now. Kawaki has Isshiki Otsutsuki's dojutsu, so of course that right there can even get stronger and stronger, because Kawaki is probably going to be an even more powerful character than Isshiki Otsutsuki. But I do want to know what you guys think about these in the comment section below. If you guys have any ones that I did actually miss or didn't actually include, maybe I made a mistake or something like that, let me know in the comment section below. But it's been your boy Baara, and we out.
It's a knife.